All right, you guys, it is 9:02. We had a meeting at 9 o'clock, so we are going to get this thing started. So once again, welcome to
my parents' house.
Hold on. Leslie, you're muted now too.
Katie, did you mute me? Oh, okay. Sorry about that, you guys. We are meeting style today. So if you are able to turn on your camera, please do so we can continue to come together as a brokerage network family. Also, please keep yourself on mute. If you do have questions, please raise your hand, put them in the chat box. We can unmute you at that time. But other than that, I think we are ready to rock and roll. So typically we start with our where are we at moment, and we go through our local stats. I'm going to give you my 30-second local stat update because we went to deep dive in it last month. Inventory levels are still wildly low due to insatiable buyer need. Days on market is down. Home prices and average and median home prices are up. The fascinating thing about the month of July is that our pending sales across the state have taken a dip. So there you go. There is your local market stats in 30 seconds. Other than that, it's the same conversation we've been having all year. So I'm going to kick today's call over to Chris. Welcome back. You are going to rock and roll with our economic updates and market stats.
Thank you, Leslie. All right, so we're gonna actually start our conversation with not local stats, but we're gonna have a conversation sort of big picture on what's going on in the industry and what is showing up in different parts of the country. It's a message that I shared with a smaller group last week, and wanted to share a little bit of that data with our brokerage participants this week. This data actually, interestingly enough, is coming from Fannie and Freddie. Obviously, they have economists, and their view of the industry or the real estate market is going to be predicated or sort of built around this conversation of how is it going to affect mortgages, how does it affect the rates that are being offered, how does it affect the number of people actually applying for a mortgage as well. And so they're looking at pricing, and we're going to look at pricing as well today, but let's talk a little bit about home price growth. Now, their number shows year to date, we're at about 12.1% in growth in home price, right, nationally. The number you hear being thrown around out there is about 17%. Man, values are up 17. And that is what we probably will get to by the end of 2021. But on the screen, you'll see just a couple of thoughts as they look at what's driving home price growth. And for us to have conversations moving forward with our buyers and our sellers around, is this sustainable? Is it unsustainable? Should we be expecting a cliff that we're all going to walk off of or jump off of? The answer to that is no. And here's why. Home price growth has been supported by three main things. The first one is increased demand, right? Increased demand due to low mortgage rates. And we might say, gosh, is that really driving increased demand? We're gonna talk a little bit about why those mortgage rates absolutely have driven increased demand over the last 12, 15, 18 months. The second thing that is actually really driving home pricing is disposable after-tax income, right? That has risen during the current recession. Like the fact is disposable after-tax income is well up across the country. Some of us are thinking like how and why, but the fact is as that goes up, it allows people to spend more on housing, right? When we look at housing as a percentage of their income, that actually hasn't gone up, even though home prices have. So when we look at average monthly payment and what the average American is paying for their housing, it is actually a very, very stable market and point in history, even with that ridiculous increase in pricing. So that's the economics of it. Now, the third thing, and we see this and we know this, and it's been like a monthly conversation for about 2 years now, is it's just a major shortage of housing supply relative to our population. And so interestingly enough, housing formation and population is actually exceeding expectations and exceeding the rate of new units entering the market across the country, not just here in Oregon, but truly across the country. That in itself is why economists take a step back and say, well, gosh, like, what do we do with this? What do we predict? What do we say is going to happen? And their expectation is we're gonna still go on this wild ride for 2021. And by the end of 2022, we're gonna look back at 2022 and say, well, gosh, the values are up by about 5.5%, which is normal. Now, when someone says, well, gosh, like, what does that mean? Like, our values going down? The fact is it's not. It's just that right now we're seeing an increase in value of about 1 to 1.5% every single month, right? Next year, we'll see it by about 0.5% every single month. So when someone says, gosh, I think I'm just going to wait this thing out, I'm going to wait until values come down. It seems like values are going down. Like, they are paying more for a house every single month that they wait. And that's an important conversation. Listen, if you want to wait, by all means, wait. But the fact is you're going to pay 1.5% more for the house in September than you will in August. And by the time you get middle of 2022, like, add up the percentages, they're going to pay 6-7% more than they will by that point in time than they will today. So remember, a deceleration in the rate of increase doesn't mean a drop in pricing. Now, we're going to keep going and have this conversation around supply and demand. Why is it so off right now? Rapid price increases may be starting to exhaust potential buyers. We are beginning to see this. This is a statement that has shown up from Freddie. And they do that, or they can say that because they are beginning to see a softening demand in mortgage application, right? The mortgage application happens typically when they're in contract or when they're serious about looking. So if the mortgage applications are down, it gives us an indication that there's just a bit of softening. Thank you. A bit of softening in the demand, or the bullishness of buyers writing offers and going out and looking. Now, a bit of that might be seasonally for sure. And we've had a lot of conversations, sort of side conversations in some of our weekly masterminds around that. Here's another thing to look at when we look at supply and demand, knowing that that's what drives pricing. The number of homes for sale rose in May by 3% across the country. You're like, not here, Chris, but across the country it did. And in June, it rose by 9%. So that's going in the right direction, guys, which means supply is picking up just briefly or slightly. Demand may be slowing down just slightly. And that's the only reason why Freddie says, and Fannie says, well, gosh, like, we're not going to see 12 to 15% increases next year. We'll probably get back to a 5%, 6% increase in value, which is normal. Now, here's why we are not worried, guys, about this sudden just drop in interest in buying a home, because the largest group of millennials, right, those born between 89 and 93, are hitting their 30s as we speak, right? Some of you are on this call. They're hitting their 30s, and the 30s, right, that decade, truly the next 10 years, guys, is where first-time home buying really picks up. So there's going to be this continued demand for the next 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 years as first-time buyers continue. Now, let me show you one other graph, and I won't take credit for this graph. It was actually some of our researchers at Brivity that actually put together this housing data graph, and I blew it up and made it blurry, so you can blame me. But here's what you're looking at. Here's the total inventory of homes going back to July 5th. 2015. We definitely see some seasonality there, right? Like, as you head into January, inventory drops, and then what happens? It picks up over the next 6 months, and then it drops, and then it picks up, and then it drops. But what do you see happening from 15 to 16, 16 to 17, 17 to 18, 19? We kind of buck that trend. What you're seeing is, as it picks up, it isn't getting back to where it was. We're losing inventory, truly national inventory, every single year, right? The peak of homes, right, went from 1.2 to 1 million, 86,000 to 1 million flat to 955. We jumped up in July 2019 to 972. We're like, okay, we're starting to build again. And then that pre-pandemic trough, right, which is normal and seasonal, we just never came back. And now look at the inventory. We missed our rebound in inventory, guys. This shows us why we have felt pain over the last year and a half, the last 18, 19 months. Now, again, what I just shared with you is we've had 2 months in a row where we saw it pick up 3%, then 9%. It's going to take some time to ever get back to pre-pandemic levels of inventory, and then to think, gosh, are we going to go back to the levels in July 2019 or gosh, July 2018? It's going to take some time. Fair? So I wanted to share this with you. This will go out in our email as well, so you can have this graph if you wanted to sit down with some buyers and explain what's going on, or sit down with sellers and explain what's going on, as well as one other graph that we won't dive into this morning. And let me just show it to you real briefly. This is just the housing data graph from Freddie and Fannie, roughly looking at, well, what's going on with mortgage applications and originations, what's going on with home sales. The one thing I'll share with you as we talk about inventory is you will notice back in Q4 of 2020 and Q1 of 2021, we were on this clip of selling homes, and we were on pace to sell 7.2 million homes. That is the rate in that quarter of number of homes. In other words, if we sell that same number of homes every quarter across the year, we'd break 7 million homes. And some of us remember living through that, right? Fourth quarter of 2020, first quarter of 2021. It is definitely slowed. And we expect to end the year not actually selling 7 million homes, but probably ending at about 6.9 million homes here in 2021. And then we look at 2022, and their expectation is about 6.9 as well, which is a phenomenal number of homes. Interestingly enough, we'll have a future conversation about the future of the industry, but I believe that we have to get to a place where we're selling 7 million, 7.5 million homes based on population growth and based on the millennials coming of home buying age. So we'll have that conversation at a future time. All right, let's take a breath, and we're gonna have a conversation about this man. Anyone know who David Sachs is? Who's David Sachs? Well, I'll tell you. He was the original COO of PayPal. Bright guy, right? He was actually one of those original members of what they call the PayPal Mafia, right? These are all guys that went on to create multiple billion-dollar companies or multi-million-dollar companies. He was one of the original founders of that group. Remember, PayPal actually was purchased. So he sold PayPal with his partners to eBay for $1.5 billion. So he did okay. And then he actually went on to found and become the CEO of a company called Yammer. Some of you actually use that because Yammer was acquired by Microsoft in 2012 for $1.2 billion. So he's had 2 unicorn exits, right, in his business career. Bright guy. Now he's a venture capital. He runs a fund out of the Bay Area called Craft Ventures. But interestingly enough, he actually wrote an essay recently that I read about this. I don't know what you call it. It's a show or a documentary about Jordan, right? About the Bulls called The Last Dance. Now, self-proclaimed, I haven't watched it, nor do I plan on it, but I read the essay. And what I wanted to do today was share actually some takeaways. He had about 12 or 13 takeaways from this documentary around Jordan and the Bulls in general during their streak, right? And what sort of made Jordan show up as what they call the greatest of all times. And I'm not going to have a sports argument of whether he is or whether he isn't today, but there's incredible business lessons that I wanted to share with our group before we start going. And it showed up, guys, because over the last probably 2 years, 3 years, I've been really, really focused on trying to pull analogies from the sports world into our business. Sports, and that's because I believe running a business is actually more difficult than running a sports team. But there are some similarities. About 2.5 years ago, I started using this word playbook, right? And we're going to actually have that discussion later. Actually, today is going to be all about how do we take this sports playbook and apply it to our business. But today, I wanted to share the takeaways from this essay that David Sachs wrote about in a blog post around this documentary. The first lesson he said he learned from this documentary is to expect to be underestimated. Jordan, as many people know, was cut from his high school varsity team as a sophomore, right? He just didn't make it. He was underestimated. Well, he eventually, right, got a shot at playing at UNC, right, North Carolina, and eventually won the national championship in college. But then when he came into the NBA, anyone remember where he got picked? Was he picked first? Was he picked second? No, he was picked third. He was picked third in the draft. And interestingly enough, as he is interviewed later, that was a fire for him. He said, I was always underestimated until one day I wasn't. But that underestimation actually fueled him. Guys, it's okay to be underestimated as an agent, as a team, as a business, as a brokerage. Like, expect to be underestimated. Number two, and I love this one. This is one of probably my favorite lessons. It's a missing piece of talent can bring it all together. How many years did Jordan play before he won a championship? Anyone know? Just shout it out for all those Jordan fans. Yeah, I saw a hand. Yeah, it was his 6th season, right? He played with the Bulls for 6 seasons before winning his first championship. Now, some could say, well, gosh, did he just get better? No. I mean, he did get better. But the fact is it wasn't about Jordan. It took years to find the right people to place around him, like Scottie Pippen and Dennis Rodman. But it didn't come all together until Phil Jackson actually became their head coach. And in becoming the head coach, he actually changed the playbook. So we'll see how important and relevant that is. Phil, in the business correlation, was kind of the missing partner, right? He was the missing co-founder of that Bulls business. And he was that missing piece of talent. Now, the third takeaway is you can't do it alone, no matter how great you are. Because for 5 years leading up to that championship, there was another coach in there, or maybe 4 years, there was another coach in there. And his strategy, his playbook was this: get the ball to Jordan, get the ball to Jordan, get the ball to Jordan. And guess what? Other teams were able to deal with that. They double teamed him and triple teamed him until Phil Jackson said, hey, you can't do it alone, no matter how great you are. So he came up with what they called the triangle offense, right? He built this playbook. The triangle offense had been around, but he built this playbook for the Bulls and said, hey, we are going to perfect the triangle offense. His triangle offense was about creating threats that included Michael, but wasn't limited to Michael. So rule number 3, you can't do it alone, no matter how great you are. Number 4.
Thank you. Come on, bud. We're going in.
Thank you. Sorry, guys. Number four, tolerate eccentricity. Tolerate eccentricity. And I like this one because I think all of us in real estate are a little bit crazy. Like, the fact is there was a lot of, and I remember because I was in high school, sort of growing up around, well, when the Bulls were killing the Knicks. I was a New York fan, which didn't bode well for me. But Jordan was just, Rodman was just crazy, right? Like, but Phil and Michael Jordan let Dennis be Dennis, right? He would take these wild vacations, show up on game day and perform. So David Sachs said, as he dissected what was going on, he said the genius of Phil Jackson was knowing how to manage different personalities, work with different personalities, accept eccentricity. Listen, anyone that works with me will appreciate number 4, or maybe I would appreciate number 4 because you get to work with me. Tolerate eccentricity. Number 5, the team wants to be pushed. Right? Talent wants to be pushed. After they lost to the Pistons in 1990, Michael brought the team together and said, guess what? I know the coach says we're going home, but we're not going home, right? We are working all summer. We are going to lift weights and add muscle because we lost to the Pistons because they were stronger than us. And interestingly enough, the team responded to his leadership. They showed up. They actually wanted to be pushed to greatness. The Bulls came back and won their first ring in 1991 after working all summer. And then they just didn't look back. But remember, solid, talented people, we accept being pushed. We want to be pushed. Number 6, David Sachs says, the path to greatness can be a lonely road. And that's a challenge for many of us, especially in our industry, right? Because we run, many of us, independent, solo entrepreneurial businesses. In his rookie year, on an away game, they tell the story that Jordan walked in on his teammates, like just having this massive party in a hotel room. Right? Like they were just partying after a game. And he said he turned around and walked out. And he said, I was on my own after that. The path to greatness can be a lonely road. The easier way is always filled. But rather than bending to peer pressure, he said, I was content to take that solitary path. And eventually my team bent towards that solitary path as well. It took time. But the path to greatness can be a lonely road. Number 7, and he did this well. It's avoid drama. Guys, like there is always going to be drama. There's always going to be a conversation that we can insert ourselves in. There's always going to be something going on, whether it be in a client's life, our life, an agent's life. Like just avoid drama. The final season was filled with a lot of off-court drama. Because there was these contentious contract negotiations with Scottie Pippen and Phil Jackson. And here was Jordan's position. He said, I expressed support from my teammates, but I didn't criticize management either, right? His teammates, like hey, we're on the team, like support us. Like management is really taking advantage of us. Like they're not negotiating with us on our contracts. Jordan said, I support you, but I'm not going to criticize anyone. Like, this is not my fight. He didn't let himself get drawn into drama. And throughout his career, like the media scrutiny on him was intense, but he stayed positive, he stayed classy, he stayed focused. He said in the documentary, he said, drama is a waste of time and energy that the best seek to avoid. So how oftentimes do you find yourself there? Number 8. Overnight success takes time. Jordan's reputation before the first championship was that he was just this spectacular performer, but couldn't win, right? For 5 years. Wow, he's a great performer, but he can't win a championship. And they compared him. They said, he's not going to be a Larry Bird. He's not going to be a Magic Johnson. There was nothing easy, nothing automatic, and nothing guaranteed about Jordan becoming the greatest of all times. There were 6 long years of trial and error. Some of us are 2 years into our career, 3 years into our career, 4 years into our career, and we're just frustrated because we're not where we want to be. We're not succeeding at the level we want. We decide to tap out. We're looking at other options. We're like, well, maybe this will help, or maybe that'll help, or maybe if I do this. 6 years, guys. Overnight success takes time. Now, Jordan admits he was really bothered by the talk that he couldn't win a championship. It didn't just roll off his back. It bothered him. but he kept working at it. And the last takeaway, David Sachs in his essay said, when you find the winning formula, press it and keep winning. The Last Dance, which interestingly enough, as now I look back and I'm looking at the title of that, The Last Dance is all about that. Like, it was that last dance. And what they learned was, at the time, right before that season, that almost didn't happen, because the GM, Jerry Krause, actually wanted to use that as a rebuilding year, right? Like, hey, we're getting old. Let's use this as a rebuilding year. There was talk about him not playing Jordan so that they wouldn't win games, so they could get a better pick. And you know what Jordan said when he said, we want a rebuilding year? Remember, they're in Chicago, right? The Chicago Bulls. Across the freeway were the Chicago Cubs. And Jordan said, the Cubs have been rebuilding for 42 years. This isn't a rebuilding year. Every year is worth the hard work. So he insisted that sixth year that the team stay together. He told Jerry Krause that, listen, if you don't bring Phil Jackson back, I'm not coming back, right? I'm not going to rebuild with you. Like, we have a winning formula. Let's press it and keep winning. And I thought, man, what valuable lessons, guys, for us, taken from his journey, and us applying those, I think I shared 9 of the 11 or 12, but those 9 lessons are 100% applicable to us in our business every single day. And now, as we transition the conversation, look at our business and say, like, gosh, how do I run this? How do I grow this? How do I manage this? How do I orchestrate this like a GM or like Phil Jackson, the missing piece of that team? How do we take those lessons and apply it to our business? Cool. All right, guys, that's what I got for you. I'm going to turn it back over to Leslie.
That was awesome, Chris. Thank you so much. And I love it when you talk sports analogies. So that was perfect. And you are right. We are going to continue this conversation. We're kind of like a sports theme today, and welcome our very special guest. So many of you may know him. For those of you don't, I'd like to welcome Carter Williams to the call. Carter, are you there?
I am, Leslie. Good morning. Thanks so much for having me.
Good morning. Well, just a little, I'm going to tell them a little bit about you so they can get to know you, and also understand why you're here talking about this specific topic of the playbook, because you are our master of the playbook this morning. So Carter is the director of coaching for Xperience Growth Coaching Consulting. He is coach, consultant, trained, and presented to thousands of leaders and agents across the industries to get the most out of business and life. I love this. He is a professional coach, a certified master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming, hypnotherapy, and mental and emotional release. And of course, he was a former MAPS coach. And of course, we cannot continue the conversation without the conversation of your mission, which is to help leaders and agents that want a big business and experiential life. And a little side nugget, he's also a huge fan of Jimmy Buffett, which I learned randomly when we ran into each other at a concert, right?
That is very true. Now you're telling secrets about me, Leslie. And so, yeah, that's true. Yeah, in my spare time, that's sort of, if you're coming to my house, it's on the radio. So there you go. So that's a little more insight about Carter.
There you go. Something that they would never guess. Okay, Carter, let's get into this. So I really want to start the conversation before we get into the tactical conversation of a playbook and a real estate, how that applies to their real estate success. I want to back up the conversation for a minute and open up with a conversation about mindset and why is that mindset so important in business before we even get to the conversation of a tactical playbook.
I appreciate that. So, I mean, really, mindset is how we see the world, right? We see the world through our mindset, and so everything that we do in business, right, starts really mindset first, right? So how we think, bleeds into how we feel, and how we feel creates the actions that we have, right? I'm sure most of us have taken bold through the years, right? And thoughts create feelings create actions, right? And so mindset is an extremely important place to start, because that's the thing that we can control the most. And so really, when we think about mindset, I always like to kind of preface it with kind of how it all works together, right? I appreciate you mentioning my little resume there with NLP. Yet to kind of really understand kind of how our mindset is kind of shaped and formed, right? What happens is that, we take in situations with all of our five senses, right? We see things, we hear things, we feel things, smell, taste, all that kind of good stuff. And then what our brains do is it deletes, generalizes, and distorts all that information, right? So I'm sure, again, we're going to go back to Bold, because Bold has some really great foundational pieces around all this stuff. If you remember from Bold, they talk about how every second we take in 2 million bits of information, right? And does anyone remember, this is a pop quiz from Bold, how many of those 2 million bits each second we actually pick up? 126. So 126 bits of information of the 2 million that we get at every second we take in through our senses. And how that works is that we delete things, we delete, generalize, and we distort. And that's how our mindset is created. So if you kind of think about it, most of you guys are sitting down right now. Quick question: is the chair you're sitting in, is it hard or soft? Hard. Cool. How many of you were feeling the chair before I mentioned it?
I was.
Cool. Awesome. Most of you probably weren't, because you're not really thinking about the chair. You're taking in the information and you're on the call, right? Because you're not really thinking about it, right? Your body was feeling it, but you were deleting that feeling because it wasn't important to what you were doing. You weren't focused on that, right? And so that's kind of how our minds delete. We generalize things by, if you look at a yard that's got green grass, you just see the green grass. You're not looking at each individual blade, you just see the green grass, right? Grass is grass and it's all green, unless it's brown, and then it's all brown, right? And so we kind of generalize things, right? Like I also like, apples are a perfect example, right? And a certain kind of apple tastes the same, right? Each and every time, an apple is an apple. Yet if we were thinking about it, we know, well, an apple couldn't be exactly the same because it's not grown on the same tree, it's not grown in the same climate, it's not picked at the same time. So there's very nuances with that. When we eat an apple, we're eating an apple, and that's a good thing. We don't really need to understand and pick up on all those things. We just generalizing is good. Distortions. So distortions is where we come in and when something happens, we make it mean something different, something bigger, something smaller. We make an interpretation, right? And so when we distort things, and that's where we're going to get back to the mindset piece. When something happens, we distort it in our mind and make it mean something that it might not mean, right? So when we are looking at business and we have a kind of a negative mindset, right? Those 2 million of these 126 bits of information of the 2 million are going to be more tending to be negative, because our unconscious mind, which is where all this is happening, right? That wants to give us, it gives us what it thinks that we want. And so if we're in a negative mindset, it's going to find 126 bits of negative things. And when we are distorting what's happening, right, that will create us to look at things in a more negative space, in a more negative mindset. And if you think about it, when you think things are more negative, are things going to turn out positive or negative? They're going to turn out negative, right? Yet when we have a positive mindset, we're going to find 126 bits of positive information. And when we find that, and when we look for that, we're gonna find the things that are positive. And so from a business perspective, knowing that we can kind of really control that and look for the things that are more positive versus negative, it'll help set us up to actually get what we want, which is success in business.
So Carter, I love this frame of mindset and distortion and all of those things. So how can we use a business playbook to keep us in the proper mindset?
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. So really in short, it's confidence, right? So go back to what Chris was talking about with the Bulls, right? And that triangle offense. They were confident in that offense, right? They had a playbook that was proven that they used, and they ran the plays, and they knew that was a winning formula. So how did it do that? Well, it created a predictable result, right? When they ran the plays from that playbook, they knew the outcome, right? They knew they knew that more often than not, they were going to score. They were going to get a good look at making the shot, right? It was going to open up Jordan. If Jordan was covered, it was going to free up Scotty. If Scotty was covered, it was going to free up John Paxson, right? And if he was covered, it's going to open up Bill Cartwright. Who remembers Bill Cartwright, by the way? Any of my early 90s Bulls fans? Awesome. I see a couple of hands. Very cool. We're the same wavelength, so I appreciate that. Right. And so in short, it was a predictable result by running the same play over and over again. And the cool thing about it is that it helps us with decision making. Yes, like Chris mentioned this a while back, and I hadn't really thought about a playbook in that. Yeah, Matt's on the sports trivia. I love that. Yeah, Bill Cartwright. It helps with decision making, because if you think about it, if you know what you're going to do, you don't have to make a decision in the moment, right? If you know the play that you're going to be running, you know what play, how to run it, you don't really have to think about it. So it takes the entrepreneurialness out of it, and it helps create more of a system, something that's going to actually give us the predictable result, and we don't have to be left with our own devices. I know for me personally, if I don't have a play and I don't know what I'm going to do and when I'm going to do it, and I just have to make it up on the fly, I'm probably not going to make the best decision, right? I'm probably not going to choose to do the thing in the right moment at the right way, right? Because I'm just going to default to something that's probably not as optimized, right? Maybe that's just a fault of mine. Yet I'm going to guess that if we think about that, a lot of us would be the same way, because we're just going to default to something that's probably less optimal. When we have a playbook, right, and we know that it works, it gives us the confidence to know that the decisions that we're going to be making are A, easier, and B, going to help get us the success that we want.
By less optimal, let's break that down. What does that mean? Is that people doing the easy thing instead of the important thing? Is that doing the fun thing instead of the effective thing? What does that look like? Yeah, so I think it can range, right? So we'll take it out of real estate context for a second. So I'll let you. So a little bit more about me. So every morning I wake up and I have the same routine. I've got a playbook for how I do mornings, right? I wake up and I make a green juice, and my green juice has the same ingredients every single day. It's the play that I run, right? Again, sometimes we think of playbooks as this, this big thing that's it's really hard to grasp. A playbook is just a set of plays that are collected together, right? And so for me, every morning I run the same play from the same playbook. I know what I'm going to do. I know what the result it's going to give me, and it's a predictable outcome. Right. And so if left to my own devices, I probably wouldn't make the best decisions. Right. I would eat something that I probably shouldn't be eating. Right. And that would set my day off in a way that would probably not be the best thing. So it works like that because it helps keep you on target and what to do. It's also nuanced, Leslie, in that if we're running a playbook, and let's bring it back into business, and let's say for lead generation. Right. And if you have certain plays that you run for lead generation, right, exactly, if you're going to be doing open houses, well, you know exactly how to do the open house. And you have a playbook, and it's got 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 things that you do around each open house and each day of the week to get ready for that open house. You're not going to miss a step. Right. Because I know that in order for me to have the most successful open house, I've got to create a flyer by Wednesday. I have to go door knocking or make circle prospecting calls so I can get the word out and meet more people on a Thursday, right? I'm going to do certain things on a Friday, and then Saturday, Sunday, I'm going to do the open house. And then afterwards, I'm going to put everybody into a database, and I'm going to call them a certain number of times to do these certain number of things. So it makes sure that no step is missed along the way, right? Because if we begin to miss steps, well, then we're not going to be as optimized. Right. Again, going back to the triangle offense, right? If they were running it halfway, would they have gotten the same result? Probably not.
right? But because they ran it the full way, they would run the play as it was drawn up each and every time, right? They were able to have the most amount of success. If without the play, without the playbook, if we're just entrepreneurial, right, we might get busy one day and forget. Maybe you're opting, so we'll opt to do something that's less hard or more fun, if you will. So it helps make sure that we're making the right decisions in the moment, and it's making sure that when we make those decisions and we're doing it, we're actually doing the things as they need to be done in the right order.
Carter, I love that. So you literally have like a blueprint, a playbook for every aspect of your life to help guide you to success. But let's bring it back to the real estate playbook. And you talked about just an element of a playbook and like a lead generation, one section. Let's talk broader scale. What should be included in a successful real estate playbook?
Yeah, so it really should help. Again, I'm gonna take a step back. What's the ultimate goal of the playbook? To create a predictable result and to make decision making easy for you, right? So if I want a predictable result for my business, right, I want to make sure that it incorporates, the gamut of the business, right? I want to start with a playbook around how do I plan for business? How do I do business planning? Right? What are the tools that I'm using? How am I looking at my business so that I create a good, solid plan and foundation for what I'm going to do and why I'm going to do it? Right. And then when I have my plan, I want to go into figure out, well, then how am I going to find the business? And so, right, like lead generation, lead follow-up. So we want to make sure that we've got really solid plans and playbooks for how we generate leads. How are you going to do it? Right. Because, I mean, as everyone on this call, right, and I'm going to trust everyone on this call is successful. If not, you probably wouldn't even be on this call, right? You do things that help get you business. Right. And when we focus on doing a handful of things really well, we get really good at it. Right. And so a playbook can kind of help us hone our skills, right, and find things that we like to do, that we get really good at it and better at the more opportunities, the more chances that we do, the more that we do a task, the better that we get it. Again, the more confidence we're going to have in doing it. So it's important then to make sure you know how you're going to find a lead, right? You could be the best real estate agent in the world. You have no one to work with. What's it matter? Right. So we got to make sure that our lead generation is on point and has plays around it. We also want to make sure that we've got great operational support, right? And whether you are an individual agent, whether you're part of a team, you want to make sure that you've got great operational support to make things go smooth for you, to make sure that you are able to keep up with your database, right? And create a great database that's the lifeblood of your business, and make sure that the transaction process is smooth, start to finish, so that everyone has the best experience possible, again, so they'll want to do business with you again and refer business to you. So making sure that our operations has good, solid plays in it as well. And then when we have a great business plan, we generate leads, we get into the closing table, we're hopefully going to have some money. And so the question is, what do we do with that? We want to make sure that we've got a great financial playbook to know not only, a P&L is certainly one facet of it, and that's extremely important to know how much money you're making, how much money you're spending. We want to budget and make sure that we know when and where to invest in our business, so that we have a great plan and great idea about where to actually spend money so that it can make us even more. So we want to make sure we have our financial piece squared away. And then finally, I think you want to have a talent and growth and leadership playbook, knowing how you're going to grow with whom, right? I mean, one of the things that Chris talked about is that we have to have great players around us. We have to have a great talent in order for us to succeed, right? We need to make sure that we have, maybe not a Dennis Rodman. I don't know if I could handle that kind of eccentricity. Yeah, we need to have a Scottie Pippen. We need to have a Phil Jackson. We need to have people around us that that help us be a complete player, whether that's a team that you have, whether you're on a team or whether you're an individual agent that needs to put some pieces around yourself to make sure that you've got some leverage, that you've got some help so that you can stay in your most important lanes to get business. And so making sure that we've got a way to grow the business, to grow ourselves, and then to lead the people that are around us. So because each one of us is a leader of both ourselves as well as the people that we are bringing into our world to help us with grow our teams and ourselves. We want to make sure that we're great leaders. So those are main, in my opinion, should go into a real estate playbook.
So Carter, I'm gonna summarize if I got my notes right. Is number 1, business plan; 2, lead generation; 3, you said operations, or we might say systems and operations.
Absolutely, sure.
Budget, money, and then talent and growth. Is the order? Did I get those right?
Yes.
Okay. Is the order important in the playbook, or are those things movable as we build the business?
Well, a great question. Yes and no. I think the order is important if we're going to build something from scratch, right? I think the order is important because the business planning informs the lead generation piece, right? And if we're not generating leads, then nothing else really matters because we don't really have anyone to do business with, right? And so then we want to make sure we have good operations so that it runs really smooth. And then we've got some money. Let's figure out what to do with that money. And then ultimately we've got to figure out how to grow. So if we're building it from scratch, yeah, I think that is a really good order. Yet depending on where you're at in your business, right, we can be tweaking any of all these, at any given time so that we're optimized in all the main facets and main areas of our business.
I love that. Okay, so I have committed to being a business professional. I have implemented a playbook. How do I know if it's working and it's effective?
What are the results that you're getting? Right? That's what I like to look at. Like if I've implemented a playbook and I'm running the plays, is it getting me the desired results? Right? Again, it's all about creating a predictable future, a predictable outcome. And so if I am running the play, right? So say for lead generation, right? And I believe that this play should be getting me, I do this, I get that. Am I getting that? Right? That's kind of how I know that it's working, right? I look, go back to the sports world, right? And again, the triangle offense. Well, how do they know the triangle offense was working? Well, when they ran it, they got open looks more often than not, right? And so that's a really great measuring stick. The other thing I like to look at to know if it's working is, can I describe it to somebody else? Right? Do I, if I have a team and team members, can I give them the plays in this playbook and can we run it together? Right? We look at let's look at another sport, football. Football is a great way to look at plays, right? Look at a great quarterback like Tom Brady, right? So Tom Brady, and again, I hope that's not offensive to anybody, but let's just assume that Tom Brady is a great quarterback. If we can assume that he's a great quarterback, what makes him great? Well, it's because he's got really great people to throw to, right? And how do we know that his playbook's working well? Well, he has time to throw the football, right? If Tom Brady only had 1 second to throw the football, he probably wouldn't be a Hall of Famer. He would never get the ball off, right? So he's got to have people that block, give him time, right? And he's got to have receivers that run the exact route at the exact right time so he can get them the football. So we know the play's working when we can put it down on paper and get everybody that's in our world to run the plays as they're supposed to be running. Someone said deflated balls. That is a different kind of play in a playbook. And I appreciate that because again, it's all about getting a predictable result. So when you deflate the balls to a certain level, you know exactly how it's going to feel. But yeah, so deflated balls, as well as how people run the routes, are all indications of how successful that a playbook is, and ultimately, right. And if you look at someone like Brady, like if they're running the plays and they're not getting the results, the receivers are not getting open, the running backs are not gaining yards, right? Then they probably need to reassess the playbook. They need to relook at it. They need to tweak some things. They need to add some things, take some things out in order to get a playbook that will work well for them, because it's getting them the predictable results that they're aiming to get from it.
So commit to the playbook, put the steps in place, make sure it's written down, right? Not just in our
Yes.
head, which realtors are fantastic about keeping all that amazingness in their mind. And then hold it accountable to the predictable results, ... that you are looking for, right? Because
Yes.
you may be getting predictable results that are not the result that you're looking for.
Yeah. So, one of the cool things is that every play, it's an outcome to get. Meaning that if you get a less than optimal outcome, well, the play that you were running was designed to get that. Does that make sense? And so we want to go back and look at the plays and make sure, hey, if my business plan says that I need to sell 24 houses to a month, and I'm getting enough leads from my lead generation playbook such that I can close and pen 2 things a month. If I am, awesome. Is it repeatable that I can do it day in, day out, week in, week out, month in, month out? Cool. I've got a pretty good playbook. Right now, if I want to increase from 24 to say 50, well, I probably need a different playbook, or I need to run different plays or run the plays differently if I want to double the amount of leads that I get, to then double the number of pendings that I get, so I can get double the results. So that's why having the business plan is so crucial to the start of this, because it informs us is what do we want to happen, such that it's going to give us the success that we want, right? Because success for each of us is going to be different, right? Some people want to have a certain number of homes being sold and the number of families being helped. Some people want to have that, plus they want to have the time away from the business. Cool. Is the playbook that you have designed to do it? And then as you're running it, is it giving you the results that you want, so you get the success as it's defined in your language?
I love that. I love it. So often we compare our results to those of others and fail to look at the plays that we're running, right? So at this point, I know a lot of people are talking and thinking, okay, I got my end in mind, right? Like I know where I want to go. What are the next steps that they need to take to ensure that they have a playbook that's going to lead them to success?
Well, number one is, if you don't have a playbook, build it, right? So the first thing you can do is build a playbook. So take take those areas that we talked about, business planning, lead generation, your operations, financials, talent, growth, leadership, and make sure that you have plays around that for each of those main areas. And if there's other areas of your business that are important that we didn't touch on, just make sure that you have set defined plays again, so that you can A, get a predictable result, and B, make decision making easy for you, right? If you're going to go out and you're going to get leads from an open house, how are you going to do your open house? Are you doing it the same exact time each and every open house? Do you know how many open houses you need to do in order to get the number of leads that you need to have, so you can follow up with people, so you can get the amount of families worked with that you need to hit your goals? So we want to make sure that we have all those things built out and created for our business. And with that, honestly, it's going to take some trial and error. Right? If you're building it on your own, it's going to take some trial and error, because you're going to go and you're going to say, okay, I'm going to do this activity. I'm going to do it like this. Did it get the result that it wanted enough times? Yeah. Okay, cool. That's the playbook. Did it get it? No, not really. So I need to tweak something here or there. So the first thing that we want to do is build it out so that it is predictable and it is giving you the results that you want. And you can do it, day in, day out, week in, week out. And you can even give it to someone else and say, here's the playbook. Here's the plays that you can run. So that's the first thing that you could do. The second thing is you can take someone else's playbook, right? If you don't want to go through the trial and error and the time it takes to build out something on your own, well, there's people that have gone before you and that have done it and that have successful plays that you can implement and run in your business. So you can find that from someone else. And something that we offer here, at Xperience Growth is we have a playbook consulting program where we've taken the plays that Xperience runs and has run, and they are predictable, they are proven, and we package them up and we give it to people that have become clients of ours, and in over a 9-month period, and they can insert the playbooks from Xperience into their business. And really, it's a shortcut for the trial and error of creating it on your own.
The shortcut, I like that. So options, we can build it on our own, right? Which is probably going to take a lot of time, energy, effort, and fail your way forward. To
Absolutely.
adopt, right? Like that's how we do it, right? Fail forward, fail fast, fail often. We can absorb or take on a playbook of somebody else. And a great example of that is looking in your market center, looking across Keller Williams, looking across the network and saying, I love that, the way that person's doing business, and implement that in. Or you can seek guidance through coaching consulting. So I think that a lot of us are familiar with the first two, right? Like we live that every single day in our market centers. But I'd like to learn a little bit more about what if somebody says today, like, hey, building it from the ground up, I don't got the time, energy, effort to do that. Or I don't have somebody to model what I want to do. I'd like to experience what coaching and consulting looks like in a playbook capacity. Tell us a little more about what that looks like.
Yeah, sure. So Xperience Playbook Consulting, again, you get these 5 big buckets of a playbook, and we package it up and give it to you, and we roll it out over a course of 9 months. Leslie asked a great question earlier. Does the order matter? To which I said, well, yes and no. If you're building it from scratch, from the ground up, if you're implementing things in a linear way, then it does matter. And what we do is we subscribe to the order of plan your business, find the business, and get people to work with you in a consistent and predictable way. Operate it like a true business, and then financials and talent and growth. So we roll that out over 9 months, and we do that with a dedicated consultant that you work with one-on-one each and every week over that 9-month period to make sure that the plays are implemented and that they're done to make sure it works with who you are and who your business is, right? It's every single business is nuanced, right? The triangle offense, let's go back to the Bulls, right, was a little bit different each and every year depending on who the personnel was on the team. Yet the concept and the construct was the same. It was a little bit different. And so we understand that and appreciate that, and want to make sure that we have someone that's going to help you put it into your business and have help with the accountability to actually do it. It's always a big thing, right? So as the coach in me wants to always make sure that no one ever does anything just like subscribes to something and it doesn't actually do it. And so the consultant is there to make sure that it works with your business, is congruent with who you are and who who the people out are on your team, or what you want about your business, and there to hold the accountability at the highest level to make sure that it's getting done and that the results are exactly what you want.
So if people are intrigued and they want to know more about you and or what a playbook consulting and coaching opportunity looks like, how would they go about doing that?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can check out our website. I think you just threw it up there in the chat. Xperience, I think xperiencogrowth.com. And you can check out the coaching and consulting tab of that, and it has Xperience Playbook Consulting. You can learn more about that there. You can also, again, you shoot me an email if you'd like my email. I'll throw it in the chat here in a second, so you have that. You can feel free to shoot me an email direct. You can also, if you want to talk about it and kind of have some questions, is this the right thing for me? Is this the right thing for my business? I kind of have some kind of want to talk more one-on-one. On the website, xperiencogrowth.com, you can schedule a free 30-minute consultation with me. We can walk through your particular business and figure out what the best plan and best path is for that. So those are the three main ways that we can have that conversation. So yeah, go to xperiencegrowth.com. You can check out the information on the Playbook Consulting, and then of course, if you want to have a direct conversation with me, email is awesome, as well as scheduling a free 30-minute conversation.
I love it. Carter, if you will pop your email in there, that would be awesome. You guys,
Absolutely.
I put in the links to his blogs if you want to learn a little bit more about his mission and the value that it provides, as well as the consulting link. And I'm going to do one more as Carter puts on an amazing event. I'm not sure if you have the next one planned of your playbook event where you bring in top agents that have run those plays. Do you have one of those coming up, or is there a recording that people could look at to kind of experience what others have done?
Yeah, if you go to xperiencegrowth.com and check out the downloads tab, we have some past interviews on there that you can go take a look at. We've got some on there around open houses. In particular, we have on, again, financials. Chris has a couple of interviews on there about a playbook and how to really implement that. But all facets of a business, both that are more higher level in terms of kind of more mindset and how to get what you want in your business, and a lot more tactical approaches depending on what you're looking for and what you need in that moment. So yeah, if you go to xperiencegrowth.com and check out our downloads tab, you can find a lot of those resources.
I love it. And for those of you who are not downloading from the chat, do not worry. We will send everything in the wrap-up email. We will also keep you updated on future events. Please feel free to reach out to myself, your leadership team, or Carter if you have any questions. We talked market stats, we talked legends, we talked sports, we talked playbooks. It was an awesome day. You guys, Carter, thank you for your time today. Thank you to everyone who joined us for today's State of the Industry. We will see you next month, same time, and we are going to call it a wrap and have a powerful day, you guys.
And thanks, guys.
Thanks, Carter.